Today is Tuesday, June 13th, 2023. Tomorrow is the hump day. Then Thursday is the last week for me because Friday is a day off, an official holiday for me. I have any particular schedule, but probably travel. I will travel to Seoul or just hang around in Gwangju. Not sure what I will do. Maybe chase after girls. Who knows? As I travel a lot around the city, I get to see a lot of cut faces of the road, of the mountain hills, so that I naturally became interested in geology, faults, anticline, decline, and the rock formations, and the history of the Earth. So let's find out about the faults. Okay, we see a lot of faults when we travel to the tourist destinations or the cut faces along the highways and so on. This article is from Lumen, and I am trying to read this article to practice English by reading English article each day. I will focus on the exact pronunciations and also memorize the key expressions that I deem I could use later on when I move to America or Australia. If you have a job for me, just contact me. I will retire in 5 years' time. I don't care if it's New Zealand, Canada, UK, Europe, or even Kazakhstan. Here we go. Module 7, Crustal Deformation, Reading Faults. Ductile rocks behave plastically and become folded in response to stress. Interesting. Even in the shallow crust, where rocks are cool and relatively brittle, folding can occur if the stress is slow and steady and gives the rock enough time to gradually bend, buckling. If the stress is applied too quickly, rocks in the shallow crust will behave as brittle solids and break. If it's quick, right? Got it? Get it? Good. Deeper in the crust, where the rocks are more ductile, folding happens more readily, even when the stress and strain occurs rapidly. So the crust, shallow crust and deep crust, they respond differently to a slow or quick stress, right? Ductile. Remember the expression ductile. Anticlines and synclines. The most basic types of faults are anticlines and synclines. Okay, let's remember anticline and syncline. Anticline and syncline, antonym to each other. Imagine a rug, the sides of which have been pushed toward each other, forming ridges and valleys. The ridges are upfolds and the valleys are downfolds. In terms of geologic structures, the upfolds are called anticlines, right? When the cup is put on the shelf with upside down, it is called anticline, and the downfolds are called synclines. So U-shape or V-shape, a fold is syncline, and V, U, and this one, like I don't know, what is it? N shape is called anticlines. In block diagrams like those shown below, the top of the block is the horizontal surface of the Earth, the map view. Anticline, syncline. Let me go over this sentence. In block diagrams like those shown below, the top of the block is the horizontal surface of the Earth, the map view. Okay, map view. Plane. There are the two visible sides of the box are cross sections, vertical slices through the crust. So the map view, horizontal surface, the map view, and cross sections, vertical slices through the crust, cross sections. The colored layers represent stratified geologic formations, geologic formations that were originally horizontal, such as sedimentary beds or lava flows. Use the block diagrams to visualize the three-dimensional shapes of the geologic structures. Keep in mind that erosion has stripped away the upper parts of these structures, so that map view reveals the interior of these structures. In map view, an anticline appears as parallel beds of the same rock type that dip away from the center of the fold. In an anticline, in map view, they were talking about the structure on the right side. I thought they were talking about the structure in the left side, which is anticline. So in map view, an anticline appears as parallel beds of the same rock type that dip away from the center of the fold. In an anticline, the oldest beds, the ones that were originally underneath the other beds, are at the center, along the axis of the fold. The axis is an imaginary line that marks the center of the fold on the map. In map view, an syncline appears as a set of parallel beds that dip toward the center. In a syncline, the youngest beds, the ones that were originally on top of the rest of the beds, are at the center, along the axis of the fold. Anticlines and synclines form in sections of the crust that are undergoing compression, places where the crust is being pushed together. Plunging anticlines and synclines. A plunging anticline or plunging syncline is one that has its axis tilted from the horizontal so that the fold is plunging into the earth along its length. Plunge direction is the direction in which the axis of the fold tilts down into the earth. Plunging anticline, right? Youngest, oldest, oldest. Plunging syncline. In map view, a plunging anticline makes a U-shaped or V-shaped pattern that points or closes in the direction of plunge. A cross-section at a right angle to the axis of a plunging anticline looks the same as anticline. A cross-section at a right angle to the axis of a plunging anticline looks the same as an anticline. In map view, a plunging syncline makes a U-shaped or V-shaped pattern that opens in the direction of a plunge. Plunging anticline. Anticlines in figure 1 diagram of an anticline. In structural geology, an anticline is a fold that is convex up and has its oldest beds at its core. The term is not to be confused with antiform, which is a purely descriptive term for any fold that is convex up. Antiform, anticline. Therefore, if age relationships between various strata are unknown, the term antiform should be used. On a geologic map, anticlines are usually recognized by a sequence of rock layers that are progressively older toward the center of the fold because the uplifted core of the fold is preferentially eroded to a deeper stratigraphic level relative to the topographically lower flanks. The strata dip away from the center or crest of the fold. If an anticline plunges, that is inclined to the Earth's surface, the surface strata will form Vs that point in the direction of a plunge. Figure 2, anticline with syncline visible at far right. Note the man standing before the formation for scale. If anticline plunges, that is inclined to the Earth's surface, the surface strata will form V's, multiple V's, plural, form V's that point in the direction of a plunge. Anticlines are often flanked by synclines, although faulting can complicate and obscure the relationship between the two. Faults often form during crustal deformation as the result of shortening that accompanies orogenic mountain building. In many cases, anticlines are formed by movement on non-planar faults, right? During both shortening and extension, such as ramp anticlines and rollover anticlines. Ramp anticlines, rollover anticlines, shortening and extension, shortening and anticlines terminology. Any fold whose form is convex upward is an antiform, right? Antiform, convex up, concave, convex. Antiforms containing progressively younger rocks from their core outwards are anticlines. Antiforms containing progressively younger rocks from their core outwards are anticlines. An anticline or antiform has a crest, which is the highest point on a given stratum along the top of the fold. A hinge in an anticline is the locus of maximum curvature or bending in a given stratum in the fold. An axis is an imaginary line connecting the hinges in the different strata in a two-dimensional cross-section through the anticline. Connecting the hinges or points of maximum curvature in the different layers in three dimensions produces an axial plane or axial surface. In a symmetrical anticline, a surface trace of the axial plane coincides with a crest. If an asymmetrical anticline with an asymmetrical anticline, the surface trace of the axial plane or axis will be offset from the crest toward the steeper flank of the fold. An overturned anticline is an asymmetrical anticline with a flank or limb that has been tilted beyond the perpendicular so that the beds in that limb are upside down. A structure that plunges in all directions to form a circular or elongated structure is a dome. Domes are generally formed from one main deformation event or via diaparism from underlying magmatic intrusions or movement of upwardly mobile, mechanically ductile material such as rock salt dome, and shale diaper. The recharge structure of the Sahara is considered a dome that has been laid bare by erosion. An anticline which plunges at both ends is formed doubly plunging anticline and may be formed from multiple deformations or superposition of two sets of folds or be related to the geometry of the underlying detachment fold and the varying amount of displacement along the surface of that detachment fold. The highest point on a doubly plunging anticline or any geologic structure for that matter is called culmination. An elongated dome which developed as the sediments were being deposited is referred to as a pericline. An anticlinorium is a series of anticlinal folds on a regional scale anticline. Examples include the late Jurassic to early Cretaceous Purcell anticlinorium in British Columbia and the Blue Ridge anticlinorium of Northern Virginia and Maryland in the Appalachians, or the Nittany Valley in central Pennsylvania. Economic significance, structural tract, anticlinal fold. Doubly plunging or faulted anticlines, culminations, and structural domes are favored locations for oil and natural gas drilling. The low density of petroleum causes it to buoyantly migrate upward to the highest parts of the fold until stopped by a low permeability barrier such as an impermeable stratum or fold zone. Examples of low permeability seals that contain the hydrocarbons, oil, and gas in the ground include shale, limestone, sandstone, and even salt domes. The actual type of stratum does not matter as long as it has low permeability. Anticlines are important focal points for pulling of hot, metal-laden formational brines, which can form mantle ore deposits, Irish-type lead zinc deposits, and uranium deposits, amongst others. Culminations in folded strata, which are cut by shears, and folds, are favored locus, the plural form of loci for deposition of saddle reef style lode gold deposits. Wow, lode, right? Lode, Mac, the line of rare minerals underneath the earth, lode. Synclines. In structural geology, a syncline is fold, right, with younger layers closer to the center of the structure. What the heck? Synclinorium, plural synclinoriums or synclinoria, is a large syncline with a superimposed smaller folds. Synclines are typically a downward fold termed a synformal syncline, that is, a trough. But synclines that point upwards or perched can be found when strata have been overturned and folded. An antiformal syncline, a sidling hill syncline, as exposed in the Interstate 68 road cut. Okay, road cut, it is called road cut, to the west of Hancock, Maryland, USA. Road cut. Characteristics. On a geologic map, synclines are recognized by a sequence of rock layers that grow progressively younger, followed by the youngest layer at the fold's center or hinge, and by a reverse sequence of the same rock layers on the opposite side of the hinge. If the fold pattern is circular or elongated circular, the structure is a basin. Folds typically form during crustal deformation as the result of compression that accompanies orogenic mountain building. Notable examples: Powder River Basin, Wyoming, USA; Sidling Hill Road Cut along Interstate 68 in western Maryland, USA, where the rock well formation and underlying porcelain sandstone are exposed. Porcelain, porcelain. That's the plant where by which you can make some tincture, some fermentation for your cancer treatment. Western Lake Superior, which occupies a basin created by the mid-continent rift system. Sao, a commune in the Drôme department in southeastern France. The Catlins, an area in the southeastern corner of the South Island of New Zealand. Basins and domes. A basin is a bowl-like depression in the strata, layers of rock. A basin is similar to a syncline, but instead of an axis, it has a single point at the center. The strata will dip toward the center point, and the youngest rock is at the center. In map view, the strata form concentric circles, a bullseye pattern along the center point. Concentric circles, right? A bullseye pattern. A dome is a bulge in strata. A dome is similar to an anticline, but instead of an axis, it has a single point at the center. strata will dip away from the center point, and the oldest rock is at the center. In map view, the strata form concentric circles, a bullseye pattern around the center point. Contribute. Did you have an idea for improving this content? No, not yet. We'd love your input. Not yet. Improve this page, learn more, so it's more like a Wikipedia stuff. Licenses and attributions, Lumen Waymaker. I think this article is a very basic primer, and to me it's difficult. I wish to have some kind of 3D video explanations, then I would understand the domes, antiforms, anticlines, synclines, plunge, axis, center point, concentric, a bullseye pattern, U shape, V shape, V's, and so on. Yeah. Thanks for listening. Have a wonderful Tuesday night. Bye bye.